Injuries are a part of sports, specifically football and hockey, because hits are an integral part of the game. Injuries are bad for whatever sport. Starting players cannot participate, and the games may be less exciting without those highest caliber players. And also, the attendance may drop if the fans are less interested. Now, the bounty system implemented by Greg Williams and the New Orleans Saints provided incentives to create injuries for the opposing team's players. They had cart-offs, which were worth $1,000 each, which was when a player was unable to walk off the field under their own power, and knock-offs, which was for $1,500 each, when a player was injured and could not return to the game.
Violence is intrinsic in the sports of football and hockey. They are meant to be played that way. A lot of the two sports' popularity comes from the big, bone-crushing hits and raw physicality in their games. And taking away these or attempting to subdue these can risk the integrity of both games. And by risking the integrity of both games, you are going to lose many loyal fans, future players who may be contemplating to play that game, and the revenue that is caused by those fans and players.
In this debate, we are going to focus on the sport of football. And although violence is intrinsic in the sport of football, and it is true that football leaves players susceptible to injury, there is a fine line between hard hits and hitting a player in specific injury-prone parts of the body, such as the knees or the head. Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator of the New Orleans Saints, gave a speech after the Saints were told to stop their bounty program that specifically tells his players to target those areas of the body. In Greg Williams' speech, he spoke about specific star players on the San Francisco 49ers offense, the opponent of the Saints for that week. He talked about wide receiver Michael Crabtree and said, "We need to decide whether Crabtree wants to be a fake-ass prima donna or he wants to be a tough guy. He becomes human when we bleeping take out that outside ACL." He also talked about wide receiver Kyle Williams, who has had a history of concussion problems. He said, "We need to find out in the first two series of the game about his concussion. We need to put a bleeping lick on him right now." He also talks about two other players, quarterback Alex Smith, to which he said, "Every single one of you," about his defense, "before you get off the pile, affect the head. Early, affect the head. Continue, touch, and hit the head." These three players that he talks about have had injury problems in the past, but the fact that he specifically tells his defensive players to target those areas of the body is just, there's no place for it in the NFL.
Although Greg Williams was out of line for targeting specific body parts, his speech is mostly a common occurrence in the NFL. It follows a common proverb that most NFL coaches use: cut off a snake's head and the body will die. You play to win the game. Although Greg Williams was wrong for asking his players to explicitly target vulnerable parts of opponents' bodies, you can nevertheless deny that Saints players were thinking of that already. The Saints players and organization want to win. They are an organization built on winning. No matter how malicious the intent may be, if it gives them the advantage, they will take it with open arms. And from seeing the game footage, very few of the hits were even considered illegal. So, from seeing this, I believe that Greg Williams' speech did nothing more than motivate his players to play harder. The injuries like the ones that have occurred in the games that the Saints have played in are merely very common in the NFL, and they cannot be prevented. We only see these injuries as malicious because of our knowledge of the Saints bounty program. I believe that the bounty program was merely rewarding players for issuing big hits on other players. Monetary compensation for helping your team win is allowed. This is how many teams reward their players for scoring touchdowns or getting interceptions. So why shouldn't this be any different for issuing big hits? I mean, as long as the hits are legal and they help your team win, why should this not be legal?
bounty program did provide the Saints with a competitive advantage, albeit an illegal advantage. I do not believe that all the players that participated in this bounty program are evil. However, I do believe that they wanted to win so badly that they were afraid of not fulfilling the wishes of their coaching staff. In life outside of sports, hitmen can be criminally prosecuted for intentionally trying to injure or kill a person. Greg Williams was the mastermind of this mercenary program that the Saints had in place. He paid his players to try to end the careers of other players. Although there was no direct killing in football, some of the injuries that his players have caused have long-term effects that have led to death in other players.
Players want the game to be physical, as can be evidenced by the numerous complaints by defensive players regarding Roger Goodell's rule changes to protect NFL players' safety. Implementing rules to protect one part of the body will just result in injuries to another part of the body. This can be seen from the past NFL season, where Goodell implemented rules to protect players' heads from concussions. All this did was make defensive players aim for other parts of the body, and it resulted in injuries to places like the knees and other parts of the body. Football is a game of hitting. You cannot just ask a player to hit lightly. A good player plays with emotion and energy. By asking a player to hit less, you're, in a sense, asking him to take himself away from the game. When Roger Goodell and the NFL organization attempt to make the game safer, they are working towards a lost cause. I believe rather we should focus on ways to make better equipment for the players to guard against injuries. Injuries will always happen in football. Instead of changing the rules based on the protection we have for players, we should change the protection to better suit the players.
Providing your players with incentives in the NFL is a practice that is commonly utilized. Paying your players for good plays such as scoring touchdowns or getting interceptions is common practice. However, paying your players to injure other players takes the incentive program way too far, and that is just what the bounty program has done. The penalties that the Saints face are very harsh, as they should be. Head coach Sean Payton has been suspended for a full year, and defensive coordinator Greg Williams has been banned indefinitely from the NFL. They have lost 2 second-round draft picks, they have been fined for over $500,000, and possible future bans are in place. The reason this is so severe is because of the long-term health risks that come as a result of these injuries. Another reason the Saints face such harsh discipline from the NFL is because they have openly disobeyed Roger Goodell's recent rule changes to improve player safety. If all teams did not comply, the league could be left in disarray. However, the fact is that the Saints were the only team that we know of, anyway, that has not complied. They should be punished as a result of this. The coaches can tell their players how to play and act, but they cannot control them. However, the difference for the Saints is that their players have been instructed to openly disobey the rules, and that is a dangerous, malicious, and destructive process for the NFL.
I believe what Williams did with his players wasn't as atrocious as what we think it is. As I mentioned before, NFL is a game of violence, and it's meant to be played that way. There is no possible way to remove this from the game fully. Williams was simply motivating his team to hit harder and play aggressively. If Greg Williams was asking his players to target vulnerable parts of their opponent's bodies and all the hits were completely legal, then the fault isn't with Williams. Rather, it is a fault with the game itself. And I believe to fix the game, we need to fix the equipment to better protect the players.
Another problem with the bounty program is not only the current health and safety of the players, but the long-term health and safety of the players as well. Knee injuries are most common in the NFL, but head injuries are the most dangerous long-term. Long-term health risks for head injuries include severe depression, significant brain damage, dementia, and in some rare cases, death. The NFL has a duty to protect its players, but this is hard when a team like the Saints oppose the NFL in its attempt to do good. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a condition sometimes triggered by multiple concussions, has led to the death of retired NFL players. Also, studies have proven that ex-players overuse and misuse prescription drugs as a result of their pain, and this is a serious concern as well. Therefore, the fact that the Saints aimed to injure is simply not okay in any way.